Good morning, everybody. My name is Crystal, and this is welcome to our first CARE Teaching Tips webinar. Um, this is being recorded, and I just want to do a small welcome and welcome to CARE, welcome to GoToMeeting. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this platform or not, but I hope you guys like it. This webinar is courtesy of ESCO. They are being very generous and supporting with CARE and are allowing us to um, use that platform. So, CARE is a nonprofit organization benefiting HVAC instructors. We currently have a scholarship for the D. Brian Baker Scholarship that supports instructors to attend the HVAC Instructors Workshop by ESCO. And it's a simple $25 annual fee. Honestly, the fee goes towards the scholarship and it goes towards any sort of maintenance upkeep fees. Us HVAC instructors should stick together and learn from each other, and that's what CARE is for. It is a platform for networking, resources, and support for HVAC instructors. We are doing a revamp right now with our organization, and we're going for the better. If you guys would like to contact me, my name is Crystal, and my email for CARE is carehvacr@gmail.com. I also have a school email address that is Crystal, CRYSTAL .Nagel, N as in Nancy, AEGLE at csn.edu. All right, CSN is for the College of Southern Nevada. That is currently where I instruct, teach, and I am currently the program support lead over there. So GoToWebinar, just in case you guys are not completely familiar with it, I have created a couple things in here. There's a couple bells and whistles that I really like about it. I'm able to have some poll questions. I'm able to do some survey questions at the end of the webinar. I believe that is going to be emailed to you. This is our first webinar, so bear with me. But that's what I have instructed it to do. The recording will be available after the webinar. We are going to send a link to the download in the follow-up email for you. So stay tuned. Questions. You're able to ask questions in two ways. There should be a raise a hand icon in the GoToMeeting control panel. That is if you guys downloaded the program for GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar. Also inside of that panel, there's a drop-down menu in questions, and you're able to type in questions to just me, or there we go, to just me or the whole audience. So as I see questions, I'm able to answer them. Yeah. And thank you for caring. Our presenter is Neal Thompson. He's with Ketatherm, and he is a master of rocket science. He's brilliant, but he has a master's in education, and he also is a refrigeration whiz. So please, I'm gonna send it over to Neal, and we're gonna move forward with his presentation. Thank you for caring, guys. You are all currently muted so that you guys can hear us presenters. Yeah. Neal, on to you, sir.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and show my screen. And what we've got is today we're going to start out with some CARE teaching tips. And thank you, Crystal, for the introduction. But I'm just an HVAC guy that wound up getting a degree in engineering and a degree in education. So that's kind of how I got my start. I actually paid my way through school by going and working at a mechanical contracting company. And in fact, I enjoyed the mechanical contracting so much that I stayed there even after I'd earned my engineering degree. At some point, I had to move out of there because I wasn't really utilizing my degree. So I decided to get a job at Emerson Electric. And so I worked at their valve division for a long time, for about a year, and then I got a job at Sporland Valve Company and became a teacher. So you can ask me just about any questions you want about teaching and or refrigeration you possibly want. But today we're going to talk about how you can be more effective in the classroom and easily more effective in the classroom. And really it doesn't require you a lot of extra effort. Essentially, a little bit of time management and a little bit of planning. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, I've got some very, very good news for teachers. Okay, this very, very good news for teachers comes to you in a couple of different ways. Is your learning style and the student's learning style are exactly the same. And that's not actually true for most education. Most teachers at high school or any other level other than tech schools, their learning style is different than the majority of the classroom. So you guys are considered tactile learners, you're a tactile teacher, and the students are tactile learners. So please, you get to use your best learning style that you enjoy the most on your students, but you can't ignore all the other learning styles. We'll talk a little bit about that. The other good news for you guys is you already know your material, okay? When I was getting my master's degree in education, I got to talk to a lot of seasoned teachers that were also getting their master's degree. And the good news about this is knowing the material was not the most difficult part. All you got to do is you don't need to learn the material. How are you going to present that material? We're going to talk about that. The other good news is modern textbooks are very, very, very good, and they're excellent resources. Use those textbooks, okay? Those textbooks are going to be your friend in helping you deliver a consistent message in a certain order that makes sense. So you don't even have to do that part of it. The part that you have to do is you use your own experiences in the classroom with your learning style to make it fun for the students and fun for yourself. Do not forget yourself when you're doing these exercises and you're doing these lessons. Make sure that something is enjoyable and fun for you as well. Okay, so what it is you're going to use the textbook as your guide, and then you're going to put in your experiences to make up the labs. We've had several people I've talked to, and they say, well, how do you do that? What's the best method? How is that done? And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But most importantly, we want the teachers and the students to have fun, okay? So one of the best ways to have fun is be organized. You don't have to be overly organized because you do a lot of lab stuff, but you have to be organized in the method with which you're going to deliver that and use time management. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So, starting out, I'm going to go back one slide because I didn't get to mention what I wanted to say. Knowing the material and the learning styles. I talked to several professors that were teaching master's degree education, and he said the failure of most teachers that don't do well is that they don't do good planning or classroom management, okay? So if you're not successful, it's not because you don't know the material. That material is very difficult, and you've got a lifetime of experiences that we want you to use, those experiences over and over again, but make sure you deliver it in a consistent manner, and in a timely manner, in a planned manner, and you will be successful. It's that simple. Okay, how do you do that? How do you be successful easily? Easily be successful, okay? It's through smart classroom management, okay? If you get that part right, you will be successful, okay? You will be successful. Why are you going to be successful? You're a teacher in HVACR. You like HVACR. Their learning style that you've learned is the same learning style of your students, and you're just going to help deliver that, okay? One of the best ways to do it is the students know exactly what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. You want to have a certain schedule that you follow, and please follow that schedule very strictly, okay? So attendance policy, being on time and that sort of thing. Mainly the on time is you're going to be using soft skills. So whether you like it or not, you will be teaching soft skills as well. So those soft skills are what makes or breaks good technicians in our industry, because technicians in our industry will be going into places of business and homes, and people want to be comfortable with those people coming into their homes. So soft skills are being punctual, being timely, that sort of thing, but more importantly is time management on your part. I'm going to show the entire class how this works at one time, and you need to make sure the class is listening and attentive for that time. Okay? Okay. Easy, easy, easy to start on time. And you have a certain time that you guys want to start, and make sure you start on time and be consistent with that. Because that time is so vitally important. The first 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of your class is where you have the student's attention the most. So the most difficult parts to understand and follow and go through, make sure you cover that in the first 10 to 15 minutes. Okay? Please use them wisely. Do not let students upset the beginning of your class that started on time. Get to it. It won't be boring. You'll have plenty of time after that first part of the class to start being a little bit more flexible in the way that you run your classroom. The other thing is, I know they're tactile learners, but please have your students actually read that textbook, okay? Read the textbook. If they don't read that textbook, they do not come prepared to class to have meaningful conversation and meaningful questions for you and their understanding. That winds up being a huge part that people do not do necessarily in our industry, because they say, well, we're in tech school, I don't want them to read. They need to be able to read and expose. I'm not talking about reading so deeply that it's got a major test every time, but they need to be exposed to that through reading, and then do what you can on the writing as well. Test them, give them a quiz, and I mean only the basics. Basics only. You want to know whether they opened the textbook and took 10 or 15 or 20 minutes just to review the material that you're going to be going over today. Okay? You will have, okay, we used to teach block scheduling in high school and things like that, and those were quite long. So you'll see that you'll have, a class that starts at 1. You have a 3-hour class that's over at 4. Okay? That's very long. I told you about the first 10 or 15 minutes. Okay? You don't only want one first 10 or 15 minutes. Have a second gathering at around 2:30. Be very punctual, and you must be in class, or 2:30, 2 o'clock is the time. 2 o'clock, 2:30, whenever you decide, I want a second gathering, because that gives you a second opportunity to have 15 minutes again. And why is that important? We started class at 1. You told them exactly what you wanted them to do. You gave them the important things, and you covered what you're going to be doing in the lab. They go into the lab, and then you say, guys, we're getting back together at 2:30 like we do every day, and we're going to talk and discuss about what's going on in the lab, get everybody back together, and you get your extra 15 minutes again. And then you'll finish the class that way. So please do that. It's not boring. It's going to be the best way to collectively get all the students engaged and make sure you come back together. So that second gathering, the second gathering, as if it were a second start of the class, can be vitally important in your long lab classes. Students will get, you'll find out whether they're actually paying attention, whether you're falling behind, and what they're supposed to be doing in the lab. And please use that second gathering on your longer class periods. How do I put a lesson plan together? I want to talk about backwards and design. The reason I use the word backwards design is because that's the words that are used, that's most widely understood. But there's a lot of different methods out there that are essentially backwards design. Everybody that writes a textbook likes to put their own little flair on it, and they like to say, this is my idea, this is that idea. In education, there's been a lot of money spent on what is effective and what is not effective in teaching. So the backwards design is one that came up. It's the most generic that I know about, but here's what I want to make sure you understand. It wasn't one good teacher that put this together. There was a whole study after study after study, and it wasn't really a design, it was a discovery. A discovery that the most effective teachers do this backward design. What is that? Step one, okay? When you're putting a lesson plan together, they've read the book, you know how you're going to follow and progress through that book. You start with, what are the desired results after this little lesson that I'm teaching I want them to do? You know that first. Okay? That's why I call it backwards. I want to know what you need to know at the end of the day, or at the end of the lab, or the end of the class. And you're going to write that down. Okay? Then, you as a teacher, how do you know that you actually reached your students? You do have to do some sort of evidence of learning, and that's generally going to be a test. But in a lab environment, can you actually do the temperature measurement? Can you do that calculation? Can you do that? So you do have to determine, how are you going to know that they have that, and you can go on to the next unit. So what will you be doing? Will you be observing them in the lab when you ask them, I want you to do this, and they can do it? Will you be giving a little quiz? Will you be giving the test? That sort of thing. All those things are all viable, and please use them. So by you knowing what direction you're going to know, or you're going to go, you'll actually know whether your students are ready to go on to the next class or the next lab. How do I know you've learned it? It's not just for you and the students, it's for both of you. Okay? This is the fun part. How are you going to get there? How are you going to get there? How do I design the learning experiences and instructions to get to the final result? And that's considered backwards design. Like I said, they have different names for it, but once again, remember, this was not, it was more of a discovery of hundreds and hundreds of teachers that were most effective. This is kind of the way that they did their lesson plan. There wasn't anything planned out that says, hey, I'm going to do this first, but they put it all together and they said that we have 3 stages, actually 4 stages, to know whether we've done it correctly or not. And these successful teachers all did it this way. So you do it as well. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about that. You can get this just about anywhere. There's some blank sheets. It's called backwards design. There's a template out there. Just download it. And what you're going to do is you're going to write onto that thing. So here's how it works. The unit of instruction, well, whatever chapter, whatever you're going over, put it over there. I don't know what it is. I just typed something in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over something today. I'm going to give you, and we're going to write a lesson plan, how to calculate and understand superheat. So there's one thing that most teachers really, really would love students to do is understand what superheat is and how to calculate it. Both are vitally important. More importantly is understanding superheat and calculate it, and that's what I want to do. So we have step 1. What are the end results I want my students to walk away with after our class period? How am I going to be proven to myself that they've actually achieved that? And then how am I going to make it fun where it actually gets them to their end result? There's a 4th step, we'll talk about it later. The 4th step, once you've done step 1, 2, and 3, 4th is actually more important than 1, 2, and 3. So for example, okay, step 1, the students have read their material. I want them to be able to describe what superheat actually is. That might just be a vocal or verbal test. I want them to be able to measure suction pressure on a system. I want them to be able to find the saturation temperature for different refrigerants on a PT chart. I want them to be able to measure suction temperature. And from those, where I want them to be able to understand and calculate the superheat of that system. Okay, so how am I going to do that? That's my desired result for this particular class. Okay. Remember, that description of superheat is something that you've already exposed them to early on, and you just continue to add to that. Okay? Because this is a pretty big part. It separates the difference between refrigeration mechanics and home AC guys. If you actually really understand the system, you can move yourself into the more lucrative refrigeration aspects of their careers. So please do the best you can so that the students understand what superheat is, and here's what makes that up. Okay, so that's what I put together. Here's my desired results. I pulled this off of the web. They got 3 ones, and then I just typed it in. Very, very simple, because you're already doing this anyway. Okay, where is the evidence that what I've delivered, the students actually understand those things that I put up there? So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to have to watch them and see if they can actually take the measurements for suction pressure, suction temperature. I'm going to see if they can actually calculate the superheat. I want them to be able to describe it, and they can do it either written or verbally. Okay? So a lot of the students like this one because they're not really good at written skills, but please, once again, what did I say? You're still teaching soft skills. Soft skills are still being taught while you're doing analysis of each lesson plan you put together. And you still always will have to do a quiz on the knowledge of the material. Okay? And I strongly recommend that you get your students to be prolific readers. And if you want to have fun in the classroom, they need to have spent 10 or 15 minutes. They don't have to study the text, but they definitely have to look at it prior to you going over this stuff. You'll be more successful as a teacher if they read their material. But this is the test. Okay, so what is my learning plan? How am I going to get them to step 1, the desired results? We talked a little bit about it. Yes, the students will have read their assignment. You can actually test them on that. What we plan on doing, we're going to pull up a real-time running system, and as a classroom, because I'm talking to all 20 students at the same time, time management. Time management is going to allow me to talk to all 20 students at one time, give some instructions and some feedback back and forth. And then you're going to get to do that twice on your long classes. And then I'm going to come up with a lab assignment that's going to have those students going out in the lab, taking measurements and doing that. You're going to measure pressure, look up saturation conditions, measure the temperatures, and calculate superheat. You can have students come back together and they can just describe what they've done in the lab. Okay? Students themselves will do it. So once again, the students will be presenting to the classroom what they've done and discovered during the lab. And what did I say again? Soft skills. Soft skills again, but it could be an assessment of your students. This one is the most vitally important because it's what makes teachers most effective. And you're going to physically go in there and you're going to write in, okay, what happened, okay, something, this is the one I used. Took too long. And just write it in there, okay? Or I'm going to have more systems. More examples, you could have done better for more examples. Okay. All these things are things you just write in there, okay? When the lesson plan is over, I don't want you to spend another 4 or 5 hours redoing it because you will remember that, guaranteed, okay? When you go to redo that next term or whatever, if you put these notes down, whatever that might be, you're going to remember what you can do better next time. So that's what it's called, reflective practicing. So that's why they call it reflection, okay? What did I do good? What did I do bad? What could we do better next time? So ever improving. And don't take too long to do it. There's no reason to do that. Just go ahead and do it. What else can I mention about that? I think the more examples is the one that you'll see more frequently with most seasoned teachers, and get those examples together so you can easily do it, not just drone on. So example, 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 and the students will pick up on it. So that's what happened. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what my lesson plan was. So I'm going to start with the lesson plan, the learning plan, people like to call it. They read their textbook, okay? We're going to watch a real-time system running and calculating superheat. Our controller does it. A lot of schools have our controller, but the iManifold does it too. So any way you can actually get students, the entire classroom, all 23 or however many students, we're going to watch that happen so they get an idea of what superheat is. So what have we got? Okay, we've got a system here that's running, and it's real time, and I've got a reading of 50 psi suction pressure. I know what refrigerant I've got, R404A, and I can look up the saturation condition, and your students will come up and it'll say 15.8, okay? This is a system that does it on its own, but the students need to know how to look that up, okay? And then what's my actual measurement of suction temperature? And the difference between those two, measured suction temperature compared to the saturation temperature is 5.3 degrees of superheat. And you'll notice as this pressure changes, the superheat calculation changes. As the suction temperature changes, the calculation changes. And you get to watch that. So what's nice about that is this is their first introduction on how to do this. So I came up with a plan. I've used it in high school math because that's what I used to teach, but you'd be surprised at the amount of people that need this help, okay? So here's how it works. Here's the method. I guess I'm going to call it the Neal method, using the number line, teaching understanding of superheat. I took a suction pressure reading of 50 psi. I got my PT chart out, and the PT chart said that at that temperature, at saturation condition, no subcooling, no superheat, is 15.8. Put a circle there, 15.8. This is what you're going to do, students. Find the saturation condition for the refrigerant at this suction pressure. Don't even allow them to take a temperature measurement yet. Okay? So what they did is they put a circle at 15.8. The circle represents zero subcooling, zero superheat. So zero superheat. That's saturation condition. They go out there and they take their temperature reading, and they get a temperature reading, and that temperature reading is 21.1. So they put this down, mark it a solid number, because it's a solid reading of 21.1. Now, is that warmer or colder than saturation condition? Well, it's warmer. So that is, yes, we do have superheat because it's warmer than 15.8. Okay? How much warmer is that? Well, it's easily done. Okay? 15.8, 16.8, 17.8, 18.8, 19.8, 20.8, 21.1 is 5.3 degrees warmer than the saturation condition. Okay? And you'll notice in our industry, we're going to use negative numbers. And so please make sure the students follow the procedure. If they follow the procedure, they're going to understand superheat and they can easily calculate it. Why is this kind of vitally important? Saturation condition, the measurement was warmer, I do have superheat. Saturation condition, if the temperature is colder, I don't have superheat. Okay? That's how it works. So let them get a mathematical and a number line representation of superheat. They get to feel it, hear it, touch it, taste it. All the while, you could actually get them to cheat a little bit and watch a live system calculating superheat for them, and it's the difference between these two numbers, okay? And you get the result here. Do not allow them to use their phone to come up with the correct answer for superheat. They will not understand, or they will not know what superheat is, means, or feels like. Next example. So this is done in class before they go out into the lab. This is your example. This is what you're going to be doing in the lab. Okay? So you have the procedure. Number one, take your pressure reading of that system, and then they write it down. Number two, find your saturation temp for the refrigerant that's inside that system. Write that down. You're going to go ahead and record that on a number line. Okay. Then, after that's all done, step 4 is take your suction temperature reading and record it. You're going to place that temperature on that number line. You're going to say, is it warmer or colder than the saturation condition? If it's warmer, then we can say, okay, it's warmer, so we do have superheat. How much superheat do we have? You're going to count it out on the number line. And then you're going to go ahead and put in the correct answer. Don't let some student in there that knows math, or knows how to do it easily, to circumvent this system, okay? You should actually take points off for students that do not follow that process and just write down the correct answer. Because these are the guys that will not understand and know superheat, and they will be limited for the rest of their life in refrigeration that don't actually understand superheat. And then we're going to give them an example. So, this is what you guys are going to be doing as part of the learning. You did your reading, you did this. This is the lab. This is the lab portion of what we put together. And of course, please, teachers, go ahead and share your experiences. Share how important superheat was. Share how you used that to solve a problem that no others could in the industry. It's fun that way, okay? So what is it? Let's talk, for example. Okay, we have a system, and this particular system is running along, and we took a pressure reading, and the pressure reading is 11 pounds. Pressure gauge, 11 pounds. I'm running R134A, and I go over here, and that 31 pounds is 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? So pressure reading first, pressure, the refrigerant, 4. Okay? Do all positive numbers first. So once again, a circle, because it's 0, because we're at saturation condition, an open circle. Okay? And then they go, and let's see what I got on this next slide. And they take their temperature measurement, and they measure 9 degrees. So here's the actual temperature measurement, and I put it on the line. Solid that. Okay. Is it warmer or colder? Yes, it's warmer. So I do have superheat. Yes. How many degrees? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees of superheat. Okay. Now this is important. You do all the positive numbers first because you're showing how to do the process. So when the process comes and we're in the negative numbers, then it still works and looks the same. So if you talk to students and you say, if it's -2 outside and it warms up 3 degrees, where am I on that number line? It was -2. I warmed up 3 degrees, I'm at 1. They'll get and understand that. If you don't use and introduce the number line, they get messed up in the math and they'll be intimidated. When you go to this number line, you'd be shocked at the number of high school students in geometry and algebra class that I use this tool for them to understand math, plus, minus, addition, subtraction. The 8th grade math teachers tried to drill into all these students how to do a plus plus a plus, a minus times a minus. they're going to get confused because there's too many rules. If you break it down to the basics of the number line, they get the correct answer and they understand how much superheated vapor you actually have for that particular refrigerant. Please use it. I don't think there's any better method for students in your classroom than to use this number line method. Okay. So we've got a second example. What is that second example? Well, we took our pressure reading, PSI gauge, we ran and we saw 19 pounds. 19 pounds. We're running R22 and we show a -10. Okay. Pressure reading, refrigerant, the associated saturation condition, -10. Next one. So what do? We take our 0 and we put it at -10. So we're not superheated, we're not subcooling. This is the saturation condition, so nothing's happening. And then they're going to go and they're going to take their temperature measurement. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a temperature measurement and I measure a -3. Okay? And I put in a solid dot on -3. So is that warmer or colder than -10? This can throw students off, but on a number line, it generally does not. Okay, so we do have, yes, we believe we do have superheat. We don't know how much. Okay, so it is warmer by how much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, you will get tenths of a degree, but essentially, this is what's really needed. If it winds up being 7.3, okay, no big deal, but most importantly, do I actually understand that -3 is superheated over -10 saturation condition? And the answer is yes. All right. Next one. Okay. This is a time saver. In the lab, they took 15, 20 minutes to do some pressure measurements and temperature measurements and calculations, and then you just tell them I lied, and it wasn't R22, it was a different refrigerant, it was 502. And then they get to take their same measurements that they did, and they get to do a second calculation without eating up lab time to do it. So do that on 2 or 3 or 4 different refrigerants, and guess what? That's an exploration of why we use different refrigerants for different temperatures, okay? Coolers, freezers, air conditioning. So go ahead and do that. And it's a nice time saver because the students don't have to go out there and take all those, calculate all those measurements and then do the calculation. They can practice with the calculation with the numbers that they've already said. I just said, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't R22, it was R404A, and then do the calculation. Okay. Exposing them to more. That was one of the things I did when I practiced this on how I was going to teach the teachers how to do this. And I said, they're going to need more than one example, and away we go. So once again, if I go back, I suppose I could do it real quick. The measurement was 19 pounds. Well, I don't show it on the graph, but essentially do the math again. Show it on the number line. Give the students a number line if you can. You can get these online anywhere, just, cut, copy, paste, print, and do 4 or 5 of them. But after that, make the students write their own number line. There's nothing wrong with them writing it down. Anytime you can get them to do a little reading, lab time, writing time, and presentation time, that's all soft skills and it solidifies their understanding. I know in this industry, they need to be doing tactile learning, but do not eliminate the other styles of learning in your classrooms. So that's backwards design. Okay. Students will make their own. So you can pull up the system and watch it run. Okay. So this is one that a lot of classrooms use. The reason we're popular in the classroom is we decided to come up with a controller that helped technicians. And a byproduct of us coming up with a controller that helps technicians, it also helps in the classroom setting, okay? So real time, what mode am I in? I'm in a refrigeration mode. So the fun part is when you watch a live system run and it goes to off mode, meaning pump down, and you get to watch it pump down, we still are calculating superheat for you. So once again, I'm telling you about the understanding of superheat. My suction pressure will drop down to about 10 or 15 pounds, okay? And then my superheat calculation would go through the roof. And then you say, students, why is that? Well, if I'm at 10 pounds, my saturation temperature is going to be what? It's going to go way down, and my suction temperature is going to stay about the same, and that's why I pumped out or pumped down. And so anytime you can get the students close to a compressor, a condensing unit, while it's actually going into pumping down, they'll audibly be able to hear it pumping down, pumping out. The pitch of the compressor changes, and you get to see the superheat change and go through the roof because I pumped out all of the liquid refrigerant out of that evaporator. Okay? So once again, understanding and calculation, but more importantly, understanding and the calculation correctness will come later. So I've got a system that I'm going to pull up real quick that's running. Let me get a second here. And we get to watch it. So we're in a refrigeration mode right now, guys. And so I know this thing's going down, driving down to -10. What am I reading right now for suction pressure? I'm reading 12.8 for that refrigerant. That gives me a saturation condition of -25. But I'm actually reading a suction temperature of -14, and there's my superheat calculation. Okay, so you have this available to you in your classroom. Please do it, and if you don't, come up with some method so that the entire class, not just one student. So just like what you're seeing here, that automation is available for you to take your laptop and present it to the entire students. So coming together for a second time, I would do this exact same setup. So if I'm going to hang out here just a little bit more, we're pulling the room down, and we measure everything to 1/10 of a degree because we use that for superheat calculation. We're going to go down to -10, and I think we'll get this thing to shut off, and we get to see the superheat go through the roof. So we're getting close, okay, 19.9, okay. So we'll hit -10. We're going to go to -10.1 before we say turn off, okay. And then we'll watch our suction pressure go up. And if we were close and the condensing unit was nearby, I would make sure all the students were around that condensing unit and maybe pull it up on the laptop, okay? So what happens is we're going to close the liquid line solenoid. The compressor's still running, but we're going to close that liquid line solenoid. Here's my suction pressure going down, down, and we're going to reach cut-out pressure. From anywhere in the world, I can tell you what your cut-out pressure is set to. Because of this, we would be hearing the pitch of the compressor changing while it's pumping down, pumping out. The calculation of superheat's going up because of saturation temperature. But notice the suction temperature doesn't change a whole lot. Okay, boom. I guess it looks like about -0.1. Nope, we'll find out what it is where it kicks out. All right, I believe it kicked out and bouncing back up now. So we kicked out about -2 PSI gauge on a -10 freezer. That sounds about right. And then my calculation is the difference between these two. Okay, so I could put this on a number line, and boom, the students got to experience the system actually shutting down, pumping down, and waiting to run again when it warms back up in the room. So this is done collectively, not as an individual, but you can do it individually and collectively. But basically, I want all the students to be together when you do something like this for the learning activity, and that's what I had set up for you guys. So back to where we are. Okay. What are we talking about today? We're talking about building a lesson plan, using your experiences and how best to do that. You can have fun with these. This was my example. We just did this walk-in cooler. We did it real time, so I don't need to cover this slide again. Watching a real system run, kind of fun. Really a lot of fun for the students. Okay. Do the calculation maybe one more time for the students. Show it to them after they've been experienced it themselves and done a presentation. to the class. Okay. Like I said, most important, what could you do better? I'm talking about improve the lesson next time. And it might just be, it was a really good lesson, but I could have had another example. It might have been, I just need to be a little bit more prepared. The students, I need to make sure that they understand before they go into the lab so that their time management is effective. So any number of things, but please do not skip that step. Literally, it shouldn't take more than 2 to 4 minutes or 5 minutes to write it down, and less than that most of the time, because what you write down here, I guarantee you, next term you'll remember and you'll make the adjustments. And that's how you become really good, really easy, okay? Real easy, okay? We don't want people, okay, getting mad in our industry. What I learned in teaching is the average tenure of new teachers is 2 years and they quit. We don't need that in HVACR. You guys are there, you can be effective, your knowledge base is good, have fun, use lesson planning, and stay more than 2 years. Okay? And when it's all said and done, I want you to hit the punch button, punch, 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 and put that in a hard binder. I know we're in the industry today, everything's electronic, and this should be electronic, but you should hit the print button and put it in a binder, and here's why. If you're going to be gone, or you're sick, or whatever, and somebody needs to take your place, you can tell them, open up the binder, and they can follow this instruction without having to pull up your computer and find out where all that lesson plan is, and you'll have enough written in here so they can get it done. And then that is your step for the next time. Sure, you're going to have it kept on a computer with all of these things on what you've done. Update it because of your reflection, and then hit save again, and then hit print again after the lesson plan is over and you write your notes on it. Okay. Any questions so far? So this is, Crystal would have been taking care of. If anybody would have raised their hand, they could have stopped me and we could have answered some questions, but that is all we've got. Does anybody have any questions? Crystal, do you know of anybody?
No, sir. I don't see any hands up. I don't see any questions that have risen up during our presentation today. So if you are done with your presentation, sir, you can hand it over back to me. I have one little thing to show. And for our audience, if you guys do have any questions, please email me at the emails I provided earlier, CAREHVACR@gmail.com, or my personal school email address, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. All right.
So I'm going to use this last slide.
Yep.
If we get anything, this was a lesson plan for me to all teachers as well. So if there was something I could have done better or whatever, I will write this in there. And I've already done it 3 times. Well, this will be the 3rd time that I've actually added something to make it better so that I can present backwards design. So if you guys have anything, or you know, please go ahead and just tell Crystal and I'll write it in there and we'll adjust. And if I give this presentation live again somewhere, then we'll go ahead and make those adjustments as well.
Yep,
okay, I'm
absolutely.
going to give it back to you, Crystal.
Sorry. But yes, we are interested in, feedback. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's so many ways of doing this, and this is wonderful. It gives out a nice plan of, here, this is what we can do. This is how we should approach it. All right. So thank you, Neal, for all of your efforts today. This has been amazing. It's, yep. Oh, and it's back to me. Alrighty, sir.
Hey.
So I just want to tell everybody thank you for caring. Please send feedback through the survey or email me. I am providing 3 presentations from today's webinar. A blank of Neal's presentation is available. The marked up version of Neal's presentation. So after we're done, we're going to go ahead and save that, and hopefully Neal can email that to me so we can upload it. And this little presentation that you guys are looking at right now, or if you would like to look at it later, but it's really a simple little thing just to keep me on track because I ramble. But thank you, Neal, for all your efforts for today's presentation. I know how much work and how much you put into today's for everybody. So thank you, Neal, for taking the time to do that. I do appreciate it. All right.
It's fun doing it.
Thank you, sir. And special thanks to Howard and Renee at ESCO for their support of CARE. All right, everybody. Well, it is that time. If you guys have any concerns, questions, comments, I am open to your guys's input. Please let me know. We are nothing without you, and we appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from you. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Crystal.
All right. Thank you, sir.